It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All right, everybody, be cool. I'm Eric Harley. He's Gary McNamara. It's Thursday.
And
Gary.
I'm telling you, the news yesterday, this was even bigger than the art of the deal.
Oh.
This goes way beyond the art of the deal.
This is life-changing, and everybody will feel better about it.
This may be the biggest news to come out of the White House.
Ever. In the history of this country.
In the history of the world.
Yes.
Are you ready?
In the history of the universe. In the history of history.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
This executive order, we're effectively going to be reversing that set of regulations to ensure that Americans have choice in the consumer market. If they want a low-flow shower head, they can buy one. If they want a real-deal shower head, they should have the ability to get one. That's true.
You buy a new house, you pay a lot of money, and the developers, you're not allowed to do anything more. They put restrictors on. They used to have a restrictor where you could take it out, but now they weld it in. And you take a shower or wash your hands, whatever you do, including dishwashers where no water comes out. But you wash your hands, and in my case, I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair.
I love that. I love that moment. That was just so great. That was so great.
Well, look, what about low-flow toilets?
Yeah, we got to do something about that.
Has there ever been the research on the low-flow toilets?
You mean about how much more water people actually use because they have to flush 900 times?
Yes.
Yeah, there has to be some out there. I'm sure there is.
Why hasn't somebody because that should be reversed. I'm telling you, I use way more water with the low-flow toilets.
Well, there's there's a lot of YouTube videos. The thing is about YouTube, when you search something like that, then all of a sudden low-flow toilet guy comes up in every, just floats to your algorithm of interest on YouTube. And it's not, why do we have so many toilet fixing videos on YouTube? I watched, a few videos on that one time. I was actually, we were reseating a toilet. And then I got into this, hey, here's how to fix the low flow, which I already knew. It's about water capacity. It's pretty simple to do. You just have to know how to do it. And I fixed that pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, I go back to the best ever Married with Children.
Mm-hmm.
When Al Bundy built his own bathroom and put in a Ferguson.
Yeah.
This is no wimpy kind of toilet.
Right.
This thing goes whoosh.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
Right. And by the way, I'm still a chump for, having to seat a toilet. You should really go wall mount. Go wall mount. Go wall mount. It'll change your life. That was...
And no bidets.
No bidets. Seriously.
No.
And if you have a bidet, don't ever put it on high. I did that one time and I burped for a week. Don't put it on high thinking, I'm going to try this out.
I can hear the criticism. Red Eye Radio guys started out the show with toilet humor.
Yeah.
Literally.
And inevitably what happens, too, you're cleaning the toilet, right? You're cleaning the toilet, which is a different position at the toilet, and then the bidet goes off. That's why you got to wear a mask. You got to wear a mask. Wear the mask. Wear the goggles. Wear the goggles, people. Gloves, mask, goggles.
Hold it. Wait a minute.
Huh?
Let me hold it. Let me check the futures.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me check.
They were down last I saw them.
No.
Yeah.
No. I wanted up 3,000 today. I want to recoup all of my money.
Yeah.
And you may sit there and say, "Well, that's greedy of you." Look. I'm the guy that wants no taxes on Social Security because I start collecting October 1st.
Yeah. You should have jumped in when the president said today's a good day to buy. Like, what does he know? The ultimate insider trading.
Well, did you laugh at that too? It's like the Democrats insider trading. Normally, when you do insider trading, insider trading, you don't publicize it.
Exactly.
You don't tell everybody.
Right. Yeah. You're doing that on your own. It's about your own wallet. He was helping people out. Yeah. It's what a day.
Yeah. Really interesting. I have to say this. I remember back in 2016, and 2017, we didn't break it out this time. But I remember when Trump first won. Remember we broke down it was like 8 different demographics that we believed voted for him. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It might even be more now with Democrats and more independents coming aboard. Mm-hmm. But we had talked about the independents back then when he won in 2016, 2017. A small minority, but a very loud minority is what we refer to as the always Trumpers.
Yeah.
Which means he never does anything wrong ever.
Right.
And you can see the influencers on social media. Mm-hmm. They're making money off the fact that whatever Trump does is right all the time, no matter what. And
the metrics were explained to me one time that the metrics through the roof, the monetization goes, and I'm not accusing any of them, but that's how they get paid. And I'm not going after any individual, but it's how they get paid.
Right.
If the opposite happens and people go away or whatever, or start, because in that world, if people go away, they don't come back.
Right.
So basically your job is over.
And so you saw it yesterday. This is the art of the deal, the art of the deal, the art of the deal, the art of the deal. What was the art of the deal? Is there a deal? Where's the deal? And it got to be pretty humorous yesterday. But for me, it was the most fun when I heard from some always Trumpers, as we call them. Mm-hmm. Or Bubba Gumper Trumpers. And so it was like, see you guys, you're part of what was it? The panicans. Remember Trump used the term the other day that you're panicking and you're panicking. And so we were accused of being panicans. And I was like, what are you talking about? The only thing that we've said about all of this is economics will decide, which means economics will decide if you raise the cost of doing business, it will raise prices, lower production, and hurt employment, which it always does. Economics proves that all the time. And what was the other point?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. And the other point was looking at what has happened. And we said, why the president did what they did. Right. It was like, art of the deal, art of the deal, art of the deal. But I said, we weren't panicking. We simply, we lined out how economics works. But we didn't tell people to sell anything.
Well, first of all,
I didn't sell anything.
I didn't sell anything. I didn't change anything in my 401k. I didn't do anything differently.
And I said, one could make the argument that the panicans, the panicking accusers were the ones that panicked. Oh, this guy just went nuts. It just went, couple of them went, absolutely nuts at me. And I said, the reason they did it was the stock market was extremely low. We saw what happened at the stock market and how it got hit big time. I said part of it might have been over the last week. We talked about the Rasmussen polling, which was at 51% a little over a week ago, now down to 47%. The Quinnipiac poll came out, and every poll that has come out has shown where the president is the weakest, is not doing enough to lower prices, inflation, and the economy. And that's whether you're Republican-leaning or Democrat-leaning. It doesn't matter. There's almost unanimity in all those polls. And I said, but the biggest thing really that sent it over the edge, those were all part of it. The biggest thing that sent it over the edge was the 10-year and 30-year Treasury bills, as we said last night, and how they would affect the bond market.
Yeah.
one guy said to me, it's like, that's false. That's completely false. How do you know that? You don't know that? I go, yeah, I do, because the president said it.
Yeah. Right.
And this is the second time. What was the first time was about 10 days ago. I forgot what it was. And I said, always Trumpers, you got to listen to what Trump actually says. It's gotten to the point where they're not even paying attention to what the guy that they absolutely support no matter what, they're not even paying attention to what he says.
Yeah.
He's the one that said the bond market.
Right. And also said for the longest time it's not a negotiation.
Yeah, now
then he said on Wednesday, here's a quote from him Wednesday morning, Wednesday midday. A lot of times it's not a negotiation until it is. Basically saying until you have to. But
right.
They lined it out, and he was watching the bond market overnight. That was a big deal.
It was a huge deal, yeah. We said it yesterday. This could be the one that pushes it over the edge. Now, it's interesting because it was last Friday. I think it was last Friday that we said, if the stock futures are really down Monday, could be Monday, you said, well, he's got 20 days. If it goes down basically, 500, 700 points a day, you said 20 days. And I said, if it keeps going down, I can't see it lasting past tomorrow, which would have been Friday. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't make the prediction, but we assumed what was going to happen, because when you raise the cost of doing business and you do it drastically, there, again, economics wins out, and that's how people respond to incentive. So we don't panic, we analyze. You may panic, we don't panic.
Nope.
And I don't mean the majority of our audience. I'm addressing the people that as we refer to them as the always Trumpers, which is a minority of the people that voted for Trump. Wherever I go, and I'm talking about the last 10 years, 9 years. Vast majority of people say, yeah, I vote for Trump. I like everything he does. What about this? I wish he wouldn't do that. I wish it. They all know. They all know. They all know where he's weak, and they all know that this what happened yesterday had nothing to do with the art of the deal. Nothing. It had nothing to do with making a deal, unless it was the part of art of the deal where it says, if you make a mistake and it's causing harm, know when to bail.
Well, it's funny because I was reading an article, and was it Men's Journal, Men's Health? It was Men's Journal, I think, about Berkshire Hathaway's Warren Buffett and what he advises during turbulent times, because he put out some information. He does this during recessions. All right, here's what to do. Here's my advice during a recession, and it's believe in yourself. He doesn't really give a lot of trading advice, but he did say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Trump has made mistakes. He'll tell you that. In his one book, he writes about going through bankruptcy, and he said, I saw this homeless guy across the street one day, and I was over $900 million in debt or something. And I thought to myself, that guy's worth $900 million more than I am. And he said it was just bizarre. But he's been there. You do make mistakes. He's talked about it as president. A lot of people didn't see when he had the, I don't know, can you call it a summit, the meeting with Kim Jong-un during his first term. And there was this massive press room. It happened in the middle of the night. As our boss says, nothing good happens in the middle of the night. But we were here for it, and we were following it and carried some of it. Again, this was during his first term, and he was telling the international media, massive press room, and it was filled. He said, look, I think this is going to work out, and then, of course, a year from now, you could be correcting me. I may be saying something else. Knowing you're going to make mistakes, but knowing that you've got the will to fix them. Mm-hmm. It's about, okay, what direction are we going? What's this? What effect is this having? And as he said yesterday morning, well, it's not about negotiations until it is. By the way, I said that almost verbatim a couple of weeks ago. Well, and because, everybody was saying, it's, this is, the tariffs are going to be about negotiation. It's going to be about, if they're saying it's not about negotiation, and that was they said that after the tariffs were implemented, well, it isn't until it is. And everything is negotiable. The question is how far you want to go and what kind of bearing does it have on the markets. And when you saw, if the world looks at Treasury bills and says, U.S. Treasury bills and says, no, thanks, we're in trouble. And right now, Congress is trying to get their stuff together in order to get a budget to try and tackle maybe one or two things on spending, which I don't have great confidence in, but that's because we're $36 trillion in debt. It shouldn't be that those foreign nations have that kind of bearing on that kind of influence when it comes to our debt, when it comes to Treasury bills. We shouldn't be that concerned about it because we shouldn't be $36 trillion in debt in the first place. But we are.
Yeah. That scared the daylights out of the White House.
Yes, it did.
Especially Bessent, because as it looks like, at least for today, Navarro has been sidelined.
He was not in the Oval Office with Trump. It was Bessent and Letnick.
Did I say Bessert? I mean Bessent.
Yeah, so Navarro was not in the Oval Office. It was, and I don't know why that is. I can't tell you.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle to help avoid downtime and keep your rig rolling through to next winter. When completing your spring maintenance check, don't overlook your windshield wipers. Extreme temperatures, snow, and ice can tear windshield wipers apart. Check on yours now to prepare for spring showers and avoid squinting through streaks. A general rule of thumb is to replace your wiper blades every 6 months. But if your inspection uncovers streaking, worn rubber, or damaged wiper frames, you may want to purchase a new set sooner.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. The other thing is, too, remember, no carve-outs, no exemptions. Well, there's exemptions all over the place, and more are coming on it. And even, some of the analysis on the 10% tariff across the board saying that's not enough to bring anything back to the United States. So is it more symbolism, that 10%? Now, it isn't for China because people are going to see there's either going to be some kind of shortages or because there's a ton of stuff made in China that nobody makes anywhere.
Right.
And the supply chain there. And so people may feel that, and maybe that's what the markets are looking at. And the other thing is, because it's a 90-day, now it continues. We don't know. There's still confusion. Massive investment into the United States or anywhere, people are still going to hold on. Investors are going to hold on to their money. They're going to look at this and say, well, we don't know what's going to happen again. We've been going over this for 3 months. What do we do? What's the long-term plan? What is it? And still, we don't know because every single day for the last week, the story has changed from the White House.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Right. Yeah.
Can anybody tell me what the goal of the White House is right now, today?
I don't know that the White House can tell you. Yeah. Based on how everything went down yesterday. Because they had to, Trump said, we didn't even have access to our lawyers to write this thing. We wrote it from our hearts.
Wrote what?
The post on social media when they announced it.
Oh, okay.
They didn't have lawyers write that for them.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What was that quote you read from the president? Did you still have it there?
Which one? There were a few of them.
The one you just read to me about that was thinking about this a few days ago.
The Washington Post has a rundown of what was going on basically in the 18 hours leading up to the announcement that they were rolling back the tariffs, most of the tariffs. Again, take it for what it's worth.
They rolled back all the tariffs that were based on the math error.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
And more.
Except Mexico and Canada so far aren't really affected by the rollback. There's a lot of questions there. Well, I don't know if that's going to change.
Well, that's because all of USMCA is still in effect.
Right.
The only thing there being anything that's part of USMCA that is already in there, which is the majority of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's $186 billion of I think that's a figure I saw yesterday, isn't being touched at all.
Right.
So, but go ahead.
But anyway, so there are things, that in the Washington Post coverage here, again, I don't trust most of the media, Washington Post, Fox News, to be completely accurate. But the timeline stuff that they put down and some of the quotes that they have from the president were actually televised or streamed during the pressers.
Right.
Right. So those
They're quotes.
We know are accurate because they were broadcast.
Right.
And so by late Wednesday afternoon, Trump was saying he had been thinking about switching course, quote, over the last few days. The final decision, he said, quote, probably came together early this morning, fairly early this morning. Just wrote it up. We didn't have access to lawyers. I'm reading verbatim there. He told reporters in the Oval Office, we wrote it up from our hearts. Another quote from the president. Trump was watching Tuesday evening the bond markets, and he talked about it on Wednesday. He said where people were getting a little queasy. Getting a little queasy is an understatement by far.
Yes.
It was all out panic. And the point is, that they were in panic mode because a lot of the staffers were kind of blindsided by this. These are high-level staffers there at the White House that didn't know. And it was Bessent and Lutnick in the Oval Office on Wednesday mid-morning with the president. And Navarro was not part of that meeting. I don't know. Navarro could have been scheduled to be somewhere else. Could have been that they didn't want him there. I would think if something was happening like that, you would have him cancel any other engagement and have him there. But for whatever reason, Navarro was not in the Oval Office for that meeting as they were lining it out. But if you look at that timeline, when he says we didn't have use of the lawyers, that means we were doing this on the fly.
Yeah.
And then you saw the presser come together with Bessent and Levitt. Bessent really was leading. He was, he was in that meeting with the president, wanted to be part of that presser with Levitt. But Levitt was basically learning it on the fly. She wasn't in the Oval Office in that meeting, and the briefing was happening essentially from Bessent on everything so that she could relay that to the meeting or to the media. And now you have a situation that was, they should have panicked where the bond markets were going. They should have. Again, this wouldn't be such a big deal if we weren't $36 trillion in debt, but that toothpaste is so far out of the tube. Mm-hmm. We're in a situation now where the markets, or basically everybody, the world is waiting to see what happens next on the tariffs. If you look at a 10% tariff across the board, if you say, okay, 10%, right? Could there be some, I mean, more negotiations that come in. You could see widespread tariffs, but at a much lower rate, even lower than 10%. I think something is probably going to happen with Canada and Mexico on the automobiles and everything that's going on with that.
Automobiles are exempt.
Right. Well,
they're exempt now.
But yeah, are the auto parts exempt?
From what I know, that was taken out is what I was reading yesterday.
Yeah. Okay.
That's part of because that's part of NAFTA.
Right.
All that's part of NAFTA.
Or
so
USMCA.
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Same difference.
Yeah. NAFTA 2. Yeah.
NAFTA 2.0. Yeah. So since that's part of USMCA, all of that has been exempted. Anything that was part of USMCA was exempt. And that was actually a couple of days ago. They never included that in there. They didn't promote that, though.
Right.
That wasn't widely promoted. And so I do think that, the China thing, we've always said that and this really ticked off a couple of the always Trumpers. I said, well, the president's moving in the direction that we said he should move in. Now,
isolate China.
Isolate China.
Go hard on China.
Right. We've always said that. You did not. And I'm like,
we've been saying it for years.
I'm like now the argument is I love it when we get into when the debate. And at that point, it's like, okay, you're just a troll.
Well,
you're telling me what I've said and what I believe. It's like, okay, nice talking to you. Bye.
We were happy. It demonstrates at the very least that you haven't been listening to the show for a long time.
Yeah.
And because if you go back to the first term, we were happy when Larry Kudlow was brought on board. And the reason is because Larry Kudlow, in part, what he was promoting to the president was this: get our friendly trade partners together and then basically put the screws to China and carve them out for intellectual property rights. And I've been saying since then, if we don't get it done now, because I don't believe any other president will ever be able to do that with China. I don't think they'll have the will. Biden certainly didn't, but I said this during the first term, and I think it's true now. If Trump doesn't resolve intellectual property rights with China, it will never get done. It won't get done.
And then it will spread.
And then it will be all over.
Yeah, because
it's just,
right,
and it really is, you're stealing the wealth of companies, which is stealing ultimately jobs in a much different way when you steal that wealth. This is something, intellectual property in today's age is everything. So we're looking at a situation that was inevitable. It was bound to get to a head. The senators that appeared on Hannity on Tuesday evening, some of those senators were on a phone call with the president after Hannity for about an hour.
And we played the Ted Cruz.
Yep.
And did we play Kennedy? Kennedy was throwing out his...
I don't think so.
Kennedy was throwing out his normal stuff.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. But I know we played Cruz yesterday.
Yeah,
so.
we did play Cruz. But basically, those GOP senators, some of them that were on Hannity, were on the phone with the president for about an hour, and you would expect that. That's not a inside information. That's not breaking news. That's a well done moment because you get to the point where that was about the time where everybody was looking at the bond markets. We talked about Peter Schiff posting. We read his posts from X on yesterday's show. And we were watching the bond market throughout the night, and that's what changes everything. And it still could be where China has the upper hand. And we'll see if that remains the case. I don't know if a deal is going to be reached with China because Xi wants to ride the storm out. But the problem is, they've had some new consumer reports from China. Their consumers there, and it's not good. They're in a hole. And
they haven't over the last few years. They haven't had the economic growth that they thought they could have.
Right.
Well, that's what happens when you're trying to do capitalism and central planning at the same time.
Exactly. And so I don't know if there's going to be a deal with China. I hope that there is, so that Trump gets what he wants. And I hope that it means that intellectual property rights are going to be respected.
Yeah, you mean
China.
specifically for that? You're not talking about him wanting equal trade between all countries.
No. I mean getting that intellectual property, which is something that was it Navarro? I think Navarro mentioned that a few days ago. Speaking about actually Vietnam, because a lot of this stuff people may not know, China outsources to other nations, including Vietnam. And so intellectual property rights has been an issue with Vietnam. And it's probably not exclusive to even China and Vietnam. There's probably issues all around the world, but not at the level of China. Mm-hmm. And so, that would be my hope, that they get something done there. But, that's a big mountain to climb.
Reading that quote from Trump that said he was thinking about it for a couple of days now, and that was yesterday morning, which would have been Wednesday, means if it's a couple of days, Monday he was thinking about it. And that was the last, that was a big hit to the stock market that day. So he did care, as we said. Of course he cares about the stock market. Mm-hmm. Trump has promoted the stock market all the time. And the other thing that he cares about is polling. And you could see over the last week, you could see, especially in Rasmussen, for example, the slight coming down to 47%, where he started his term with Rasmussen at 56%. Mm-hmm. And so that was starting to erode. And that went down 4 points in a little over a week.
Right.
And then the Quinnipiac poll came out yesterday. And again, Quinnipiac, not a huge reputable pollster, but it does mirror everything else out there. They were rated, last in 2020? I don't know if the 2024 results have come out, but it did mirror, especially on economic issues, exactly where all the polls have shown. That's where Trump's weak spot is. So it showed that he was concerned with the stock market dropping. Though he'll never admit it, but I know he was concerned with the polling. And then the bond market is where they panicked yesterday.
Yeah, the bond market was a big deal. And I think that's where Bessent came in. I think with Bessent being in the Oval Office, it's possibly being the driver there. Again, if Trump was watching the bond markets on Tuesday evening and then was on the phone with those senators, he was aware of that. It's not like he's just sitting around and has to be told all these things are happening. This is how he built all the businesses that he has. He knows exactly what goes on in the world. It's just on trade, he was going down the wrong road. There's just no way around that. There is no way to balance that trade when you have a nation that's much smaller and is never going to consume from us what we consume from them. You're not going to have balanced trade with nations. And the question is, what is your definition of balanced, right? And I don't know if that was coming from Lutnick, Navarro, or Trump has been talking about that for years. The question is, where was that line? Where was the math? Who was pushing what math?
Well, here's the thing. We asked, people say it could be 2020 vision now, but we said, what if this all happens? Because you're getting in unprecedented territory where you were charging tariffs even greater than Smoot-Hawley back in 1930, which helped extend that recession.
Right.
And I know that because Ben Stein told me on Ferris Bueller.
Exactly.
And so there was a major concern. The fact that they seemed to be caught off guard by the result of doing what they did surprises me a little bit, that they had no idea that it was going to get this bad.
It tells me somebody was giving Trump bad information, bad math. And remember those researchers that came out and said they were using they cited our information, but got it wrong. And I wonder if Bessent used part of that to say, look, they got it wrong. If it was Navarro, Lutnick, or whoever that used that for justification. We know the president has that basis of the whole balanced trade thing, but on the math specifically, did they manipulate that? Did they get it wrong and give it to Trump, and then he took it from there? I don't know. That's a question I've had since that came out.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm ticked off because oil's going back up again.
Yeah. The oil started to rally. I was like, no. Stop it.
And I know for oil production it's good.
Yeah.
Because
right.
we were thinking if it got below 50, and this is from people that I know in the oil business that were publicly posting saying, if this keeps going, there's going to be layoffs. And this is West Texas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not good, which made me wonder the other day, was OPEC really ramping up production in order to get it low to hurt the United States economy.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. All right, so I had to go to Babylon Bee.
Okay.
I haven't looked at anything or read any headlines for a couple of days. I love this one. Dire wolves are extinct again after new Dr. Fauci experiments. Man imposes tariffs as wife racks up huge trade deficit at Target.
Yeah, really.
This may be my favorite. Trump bangs a gong, signaling another increase in China tariffs. Oh, wow.
That's funny. That's funny.
Let me see. What was another one here? This one. Off the dire wolves. How about genetic scientists trying to make young men who aren't little sissy boys? Op-ed piece. And you saw we didn't play the audio because there's more important things. But John Oliver, did you see where he said that men have basically have no physical advantage over women?
Yeah,
whatever. And this is John Oliver says men clearly have no physical advantage as women beat him at everything.
That's funny.
And then finally. Remember, they're a Christian parody site.
Right.
Understand?
So they always work in a Christian story.
Yes.
Fake story, of course.
Yes. Is it okay to date a girl who's not a Christian as long as she's super hot? No. I'll answer that for you. But, it's pretty funny. You know, the other interesting thing is, this really wasn't talked about much, but this... I saw this yesterday. It was after the show was done, but it was Peter Schiff again talking about one of the concerns, and I believe this is before
the announcement.
Before the announcement, because it was municipal bonds are tanking. This is not foreign selling. The concern is not just about rising interest rates, but the risk of default. This recession, made much worse by the tariffs, will result in a big loss of sales and income tax revenue. We're talking states now. And sales taxes,
right?
Counties, cities, whatever. A big loss in sales and income tax revenue, resulting in a wave of municipal bond defaults. And Bessent knew that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He knew. And that's that to me. That was part of the panic.
And it's here's the thing.
Bessent. I keep saying Bessent for some. I have no idea why I keep putting an R instead of an N there. Bessent.
Yeah. I think I said Bill Ackerman the other night because I have a friend, Paul Ackerman, but it's Ackman. So you look at what Peter Schiff was talking about, and there are things that are already trains that have already left the station that the Trump administration really can't head off if we're heading into a recession. But you certainly can't make them worse. Peter Schiff points out the tariffs make that situation worse. He also pointed out yesterday another reason that the foreign governments may dump all the treasuries is to avoid retaliatory U.S. default on foreign-owned treasuries. They were afraid that could be a move by the Trump administration since nations won't back down on the trade war, and the U.S. can't service its debt. Trump may default on treasuries held by non-Americans, and that would be the fear, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just default on that debt. That would have been catastrophic, but if you believe that, if you're a foreign nation that's holding a significant amount of that debt, and you believe that, then you want off that deal like now, and so there was that move.
So you see another reason that debt is bad?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is
another reason that debt is bad.
It all goes back to $36 trillion.
Right.
We shouldn't be here in the first place.
Right.
And we can tell all of them to go pound sand.
Yeah. The bargaining position of the United States in trade is hampered by our incredible debt.
Right. Right.
So even if you support Trump completely on tariffs, the debt that we have, and you see now we'll get to the whole story about the House not being able to pass the Senate bill. They want $1.5 trillion. Did you see that?
Yeah.
They want $1.5 trillion of cuts over 10 years.
Right.
The Senate, you see the number in the Wall Street Journal? $4 billion.
Yeah.
Over 10 years.
$4 billion.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like
a little bit of a difference. Well, apparently there was something going on. I forget who the lawmaker was when they were about to, start the process of the vote. But Speaker Johnson was on the floor. They didn't have the sound on, but he was talking to, I forget who the lawmaker was. And they were having a very lively discussion on something. And I thought to myself, I don't know if this vote's going to happen today. And sure enough.
Yeah, they did.
They say, he says, they're going to be working with the Senate, and they hope to get it done today.
Well,
I don't know.
That's another economic lesson, and we had said this before. Economics will decide where Trump goes with all of this.
Right.
And economics is people going about in their own self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot change that. You can manipulate the economy. You can say we're going to do this, but you can't control how people respond.
And the consumer on the retail level had not even felt.
No, you made this point. That's
impact.
A great point. You made this last night.
When
great
I said
point.
yesterday, and now you look at it, I mean, they may have seen it, the impact because of the markets, their investments in 401k or something like that. But in terms of prices at the retail level, that impact has not been felt yet. And so the question is, how do you brace for something like that? Well, you kind of take it, the retailers are saying, well, we take it day by day, we adjust as we need, but we are bracing basically for an impact. And that the consumer's the same way. We're still trying to crawl out of this inflation thing. Again, record inflation in recent years for a generation, for this generation. And you can't, when you try and tell them, look, prices are going to go up even further as a result of this, because this was a massive, massive tariff plan. This wasn't just tweaking tariffs. This was a massive, massive gauntlet, as I've been calling it, on tariffs. And because of retaliatory moves by other nations, it was going to have massive impact. and at the retail level, it was ultimately going to be felt. And there are things that I think the consumer, being intellectually honest about a number about how we go about our day, quite unfortunately, we become conditioned to expect that the price of cars, for example, well, it keeps going up. Oh, it's crazy. It keeps going up. I remember when, and blah, 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 blah. For a number of reasons, CAFE standards, government reasons, but they've been going up. So there are so many things that there's, I don't know if they've done a Laffer curve based on this, but basically there is that threshold as to where, how big of a chunk at a time in terms of an increase the consumer is willing to take on. If you're talking about 10%, that's still a significant chunk when you talk about a car, $50,000, car, $40,000, $50,000 car. You add 10% onto that. I'm just applying it to a car for that reason. But at the retailer level, on other things, your grocery bill goes up. Let's say you spent, $200 a week. It goes up to $220 a week. You're going to notice those impacts over time, and it may not have that same immediate effect. The difference, I think, right now is, I think what the market is waiting for is what happens with China. Because on the net, based on how much comes from China and how much the tariffs are against China, there's still a pretty good increase in those tariffs, and that will hit consumers at some point. In terms of the net increase overall in the marketplace, unless there's a deal made. And so we'll see if that deal is made.
No, but I think that was a great point you made yesterday, because the reaction, and you see it in every poll,
right,
that where Trump is underwater big time is not doing enough to bring prices down,
right, yeah,
whatever. So what will the reaction be from the public even if it's trinkets and clothes or whatever you get that flows through China or whatever, starts going up in price, or there's shortages in your local store.
Right.
How will the public view that? I don't know. I don't know how they'll take it. Will they sick? Because if you're going to make the moral argument, you have a great moral argument against China.
Yeah, you clearly do, because you saw the reaction from the markets when he announced that he was rolling back the other tariffs, and the China tariffs were not, he didn't roll those back. And it's a huge, huge chunk against China, and the market was okay with that. At least yesterday they were. And the question is, where does that go from here, right? Is there a deal to be made there? Maybe the market's saying, well, if there's a deal on those tariffs, or if there's a movement on those tariffs, the other tariffs, then maybe there will be movement with the tariffs on China. I don't know. You'd have to get into the sentiment of investors and companies and CEOs, because now there's talk about a lot of economists are saying, well, China's going to route them through, send them all the stuff or some of the stuff through other routes to circumvent the tariffs, and I don't think that's going to work.
I think, though, the what I thought was the worst messaging was when, and these are a lot of the surrogates came out and said, oh, 401ks, I don't care about my 401k. People shouldn't care about it. You need to have pain. You need to have pain. You need to have pain in order to have gain. I look at some of those things and I just went, that's not a winning message. The other thing that's not a winning message, especially with Republican conservatives, is what the White House was just throwing out the last week and threw out yesterday a ton. We don't care about Wall Street. We care about Main Street. That Obama used that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That comes from about, that's as far left socialist Democrat as you can get, trying to have basically class warfare as if there's this thing called Wall Street that's completely separate from Main Street.
Right.
And they're intertwined.
Right. Yeah, they are.
And so you're setting up a completely false analysis of how an economy works in the United States, We need to go after as if what you're saying is we care about, as they were saying when the stock market was crashing there, that doesn't matter because we care about Main Street. No, you don't.
It's in part why I brought up the fact that we haven't seen the impact at the retailer level on the consumer on tariffs, because Wall Street is all about the behavior of the consumer. Ultimately, if you think about investment and all of that, it's about where we spend our money.
Well, and the other thing was brought up, we talked about it yesterday, there's no difference between we're going to create jobs that pay well and saying that cheap prices don't matter. They're both the same thing.
Yeah.
To your economy as a person.
You've been saying it for years.
They're both
it's
the same
not about
thing.
what you make. It's about what you make in relation to the cost of living, what you have to spend on the cost of living. California finally realized that, or they finally realized that at the U.S. Census Bureau, and started realigning states in terms of where there is poverty, and California is at the top of the list because of the cost of living. It's you can make a ton of money out there. You also are going to spend a ton of money on the cost of living.
Right. Basically, it's after you buy the things that you need, what do you have left? It's that relationship between the salary and prices.
Right.
And so to sit there, who was it? It was a Republican who said it, somebody in administration, it's not an American value to have cheap prices. To hell it's not.
Yeah, it is.
What are you talking about?
Right.
Because that's about productivity and efficiency of, even if it's just your country.
Right.
If you're doing no trade at all.
Right.
Cheap prices are extremely important.
Yes.
Why? Because if the government comes in and manipulates the prices and then tariffs you or whatever, and the other country is not involved in any unfair trading practices, they're taking your property.
Right.
And property rights was the basis of the creation of this country. Mm-hmm. And the basis of conservatism.
Right. Well, these are free market principles.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operator Mike Nichols is leased to Wayne Transports, pulling in their dry bulk division today after decades in business for himself. Speaking to Overdrive's Todd Dills recently, Nichols offered a word of advice to any company driver planning to make the switch to running as an owner-operator, unless you've got access to family money or otherwise independently wealthy, he noted.
As a company driver, you need to be thinking about startup capital and down payment, and I would just say that you need to treat that like you would firewood. Save what you think you might need and then triple it, if not quadruple it. And you'll be thankful that you did.
You'll be glad you did. That is, not just given favorable loan terms with a good down payment. Inevitably with trucking, you'll get hit with a breakdown and huge repair bill, or another of those unforeseen events. You'll need that reserve cash to cover it and avoid taking on debt or going out of business. Hear more from Overdrive's 2024 Trucker of the Year contenders at overdriveonline.com/PIB.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Coming up here, I saw an interesting thing. You and I were talking about the whole thing, the Associated Press White House case, everything else. Great article written. James Toronto op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, and made a great point. This is about separation of powers. The AP is still there when Levitt holds a press conference. Goes, but the Oval Office is his working space. Mar-a-Lago is where he lives. Those don't fall under it. That the judge has no business doing it. He said, should a judge come in and tell? Should Congress come in and tell a judge what they can do in their own personal work chambers?
Right.
They may have control over what you do in the courtroom, but they don't have a control there. And he goes, this is a separation of powers issue. And I went, there it is.
Yeah. Great points.
And we'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit because I thought that was just fascinating. Plus, we'll look at some of the overnight markets here. And oil, of course, is going up. You would expect that to happen. But the markets were down last time we checked them.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. And maybe it's, I don't know, down 82 right now, which is kind of even.
Yeah, everything seems to be sort of even.
So
except
we'll
NASDAQ.
See. Yeah.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Just, after some of the response that we got yesterday from, people that we refer to as always Trumpers, and these are people that never believe he does anything wrong whatsoever. You need to understand our show. I think our longtime listeners do. We tell you what we believe. We have no problem voting for somebody and then telling you, we don't sit there and say, if I voted for someone and they do something wrong, I cannot tell you that they've done something wrong.
Yeah. Right.
We understand that we deal with human beings that do great things, and at times they do things that are not so great. If Trump was running again right now, I'd vote for him again.
Yep.
Why? Because of the other choices that exist out there.
Yep.
And so none of it's personal. What we've been, you and I both, for a half century almost, studying economics. You know much more of how we think about economics than any president in our lifetime.
Yeah.
We explain more. There's no confusion with us. There's no inconsistency. You can't sit there. We're not like either side, the Democrats now that are pretending that they're anti-tariff, and they're not.
Right.
Democrats have always been pro-tariff. You've had, all of them talk about it in the past.
Bernie said it when he was running in 2016. I agree with Mr. Trump on tariffs.
Schumer said he's closer on tariffs to Trump back a few years,
right?
A few years back. They're playing politics. We don't play politics. Our beliefs on tariffs have never changed. Our beliefs on economics have never changed.
Right.
And if we don't know something, for example, yesterday we were talking about the whole Associated Press, which we'll get into here in a couple of minutes. The Associated Press looking at the First Amendment issue and said, we may not have everything covered here. We may be missing something here. I've got no problem, and you have no problem saying, I don't know.
Right.
Because if we don't know, the last thing we're going to do is BS you and tell you we have an opinion on something that isn't accurate.
Right.
We're not going to do that. Other people may wish to do that. Other people may wish to kiss ass.
Yep.
We won't.
Nope. Not going to BS you. I was talking to Steven Tyler the other day, and I told him, man, I never BS people.
Exactly. And so that's who we are. And I think that's who most people are. I think that's who our majority of our listeners are. They look and go, okay, I really like this. I really like this. Man, that's a bunch of crap. And we've got a ton of listeners that tell us, I agree with most of what you guys say. Once in a while, I disagree with you. Well, that's fine. It doesn't. I would assume that's the case. The last thing I'd ever assume is that there'd be a cult of people that would say the guys on Red Eye Radio are never wrong, even when they're wrong.
Listen, we're right 100% of the time.
Well,
except for those times that we're wrong.
Well, one of the reasons, if you sit there and go, yeah, but I think you guys are mostly right. We don't argue you may disagree with the analysis of what we talk about, but when we talk about an issue, unless it's reported wrong, we may report something and say, okay, this is out there. Not sure if it's true, but this is
I'm
out
always
there.
careful to say if accurate and true,
Right.
then this might happen, but we're very careful about it.
Well, the last thing we ever want to do is have an opinion on something that isn't true.
We're not journalists. We're not reporters. We don't go out in the field and
we're not investigative reporters.
Yeah.
We don't care. We don't care about breaking news. That's not what we do here. We give analysis.
Right.
And on economics, my opinion's been the same since I was in high school and college. I've learned a lot more, but it's still the same. Why? Because I realized one day, should I run an economy, or should I attempt to run an economy? Well, I'd be an arrogant SOB if I thought I could. Mm-hmm. And anybody who believes that I can do it correctly, I can run an economy. That's how you get to socialism. It's how you get to communism.
Right.
And so we look at it and say, how does economics work? Which means each individual person behaving in their own self-interest. And what you find out is that's what actually happens. And when you say, for example, as we have seen now, well, what's happening is people are panicking. No, people are worried about their own self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if you have an investment and you take a risk, you're going to pull out quicker because you realize you took too big of a risk and you need to get out now.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality of how people respond. That's been our entire point here, and the warning to the Trump administration that what happened yesterday could happen. Nothing is personal. I don't dislike or like Trump. I find him funny at times, but I don't like or dislike him because I don't know him. All I judge him by is his sense of humor, as we did today with the low-flow showers. He can still have a great sense of humor. Mm-hmm. He seems like a likable guy. Mm-hmm. I know people who know him and say, oh, he's a real likable guy. You'd really love him. I might, but I don't know. I don't judge him by that. Neither do you. No. We judge him strictly on what he says, and does it match with what he does? And is the message consistent? Is it conservative or libertarian?
Yeah.
And that's it. And there's nothing personal. And I know, there are the people we've talked about, the always Trumpers. The majority of them are the influencers. You see them on social media. Mm-hmm. The ones yesterday saying this was a master stroke of the art of the deal. Well, they're lying to you. They know it wasn't. They're not stupid.
Well, the president essentially said so, that it was, while he'd been considering it for a few days, that they had to write the statement without the White House lawyers.
Yes. Well, we all know what it was based on. It was based on the fact of the economy, what happened to the economy, what happened to the stock market, what happened to the Treasury
market.
bills, and then the bond market at that
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was a result of what they did.
Yeah.
And so they had to cut back because they knew it wasn't sustainable and could blow up in their faces.
Right.
If that's the art of the deal, that would be part of the art of the deal, which is if you screw up, don't keep digging the hole deeper.
Well, and, this is on a completely different level, but we have seen that in Trump during his first term. And I think, again, this is another example of that on the fly. And he talked about flexibility yesterday morning or midday. That it's all about flexibility. You have to know when to be flexible. He's done that before. He did that in 2016. If you've heard him talk over the years on a number of things, there are some things that he's been steadfast on. And other ideas where he said, well, maybe single payer. Well, maybe we need to take a look at that again. And then it was like, okay, not so much. The wealth tax. Remember, he wrote about that in his book. And then later was like, yeah, no, that's not a good idea because. Well, what does that show you? All right, well, he's listening to a number of people and learning things, and making decisions, and can have a change of heart at times, which is okay if you're in elected office. as long as I believe it's okay with me, as long as I believe you've actually had a change of heart and I can see that. I can see, okay, all right, you have a different opinion or a different approach on it now, and it looks like you learned something that changed your position on this. I'm okay with that. But the thing is that the building up of it and then the reaction yesterday was a lot like what happened the other day when the fake news came out about a 90-day reprieve and everybody was just, having a parade. It was like, well, hold on a second. That's not because it was working. It's because it had been the idea, the report was, it was being rolled back, which means it wasn't working. So that I don't get. I know why some of them do it.
Well, and that's fine. Look, cheerleading in politics is all a part of it, and it's just gone to social media, and that's fine.
Look, I felt the euphoria
right.
of, with him coming in this second term. There were things being done you could see. It was like, okay, these things are getting done. His speech on Inauguration Day, spot on.
Fantastic.
This is what they did, and they were sitting right there.
That's fantastic.
And this is what we're going to do about it. This is what they broke, and this is how we're going to fix it. And he did that again in the address to the joint session of Congress.
And what he has done on the border.
Yep.
So far, I like his foreign policy.
Yep.
He's not the isolationist that
right.
everybody thought that he was
right.
at all.
Right.
And I love it because some in the Republican Party now and some of the surrogates are, well, is he a neocon?
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, let's throw out that word.
But it's, there's a lot of great work being done.
Yeah, there's a lot of great work.
Yesterday was another example of, all right, there's something coming down. And we need to adjust. There has to be some flexibility here. Everybody's the media's using the word, well, he blinked. I think we've said that a few times on those initial tariffs with Mexico and Canada where he paused them. And it's like, okay, if you adjust on the fly, then it tells me at the very least you're willing to listen. If you deny reality, that's where you get delusional.
Yeah.
And clearly yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, the reality was hitting, and it was way too great to ignore. And that's what was going on. You saw what the markets were doing Thursday and Friday, massive moves on the downside of the market, and that didn't do much, but you heard him say it yesterday. He's been considering this for a few days.
Which means everything, the stock market.
It's all of it. But bonds, when the bonds hit, that was probably a massive, not just a straw, a huge weight on the camel's back that was going to do it in. And that's where it went. We'll see where it goes in 90 days. Based on that, I expect that we won't see a massive increase. Those tariffs at those rates won't come back, I don't believe. Now the question is what happens with China.
Yeah. But those social media influencers that we call the always Trumpers, that's fine. I expect to have it, but they're not right.
Right.
When they're wrong, we're going to tell you when they're wrong. What happened yesterday had nothing to do with his book, The Art of the Deal. That was pure panic.
Yeah, it was.
How quickly it happened was panic.
Well, it was, again, you had top-level officials and his staff that were surprised by it. It really, for them, came out of nowhere. But as I said yesterday, there was only a few ways this was going to go. Congress is going to step in, which I didn't want to happen, because that would be a rift in the party that you can't repair. And the end to his agenda overall, if that were to happen and go that way. Or he keeps them in place and we continue to see the effects of that. Or he concedes and reverses, and that's what we got.
And 90 days, is he going to go back is the negotiations. We don't know what the negotiations is. It's still going to be that we must have even trade with every single country. That's impossible.
Right. Well, my question is Peter Navarro going to be there much longer?
Great point. Was Elon Musk the winner in this?
Was Bessent?
It was Bessent and Elon Musk the winners. Right. Do they get more influence?
Right.
That wouldn't be bad on economic issues.
No.
866-98 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. What will the future bring now with trade? Also coming up, support for nuclear energy in the United States approaches a record high.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, again, is that an abstract?
Yeah.
I
support it, but don't build one of those in my backyard.
Yeah.
That's the NIMBY thing. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I fully support it.
Yeah.
Well, not here.
Yeah. Go door to door and do that survey, not just calling. Go door to door.
We need to have more windmills.
Yeah.
Not in my backyard.
I don't want to look at them.
It's going to affect my view of the ocean?
Can't we put those underground?
It's
where nobody can see them.
That was so stupid. It was hilarious.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Looking right now, you and I looking at the overnight markets here in the United States, about even. Okay, except NASDAQ. NASDAQ's down about 1%.
Yeah.
But the rest, Dow futures minus 48, S&P down 23, about 0.4%. When you look at the Asia markets, all up, including China, is up. In Europe, down almost 3% right now. So, the one thing that you and I were thinking, it's because I was, when we started the show, I said, I want another 3,000 points today. I want to get everything back and more. Why? Because I'm concerned with my own self-interest.
Yeah, why not?
I'm only following economics. But the biggest concern that you've seen, the thing that they were scared to death of in the White House yesterday was the Treasury bills, the 10-year and the 30-year, but especially the 10-year. And a lot of people have asked, why is that so important? Because the 10-year is used as a benchmark for everything.
Right.
Prime interest rate, they look at the 10-year. Everything, they look at the 10-year. And so you even saw late last week, remember? Part of the tariffs was to get the interest rates down lower. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
It had the opposite effect. They got it down to 3.9, then boom, it skyrocketed up to almost like 4.5. It went down to 4.28 yesterday. It's now back up again. I think it's like, last I checked, was like 4.34. And the same with the 30-year, which is up at 4.7. I guess my question is, because the fear is There's a lot of different fears. There's a fear on the national level that these countries, Japan, for example, it wasn't China that was really pulling it as much as Japan was. Mm-hmm. Japan is the biggest holder of our debt, by the way. Foreign debt.
Right.
Foreign debt. The fear is that, Trump will just say, oh, forget about it. We're defaulting.
Right.
On it. And that's why they're pulling their money, because they're afraid that Trump will use that. And so they're pulling their money out because they believe that Trump will use that as part of the negotiations. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what has changed? Has anything changed? When you look at the next 3 months, where they look at the possibility it could be back, in their minds, what has changed? And I don't know. I mean, in these countries...
You mean with our trade partners?
With our trade partners, yeah. What has changed when it comes to whether they still wish to pull the money out or not? Because the whole point is, and you and I asked the question, and I'll have to look this up because I didn't even think of the question. Does Trump have the authority to do that?
Right.
To default on any debt.
Or the debt that only one nation owns.
Right.
Can he isolate that and say, we're going to default on those?
And remember, when he ran for president the first time, Trump was saying, well, we need to treat it as a business and we need to pay 50 cents on a dollar for the debt that we have. And it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah, there would be a massive crash.
And so he didn't do that. He got advice that, no, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And so he of course, he didn't do that. But what has changed? If you look at, if that was the fear, and the other fear, as Peter Schiff brought out, is with all the tariffs that existed, that there could be municipal bond defaults because states would not be pulling in the states and counties wouldn't be pulling in the sales tax.
Right.
And income tax, when you look at that too, income taxes that a lot of states have, that they'd be pulling in less money, and there might be a default there. And that was another concern, and they looked at the combination of it and said, we got to get out of this right away. And that's what happened. Right. That's what happened yesterday. But yeah. I guess for the future, what has changed? If that, I guess my question would be, is Trump's negotiating stance not as strong still because of, and I don't know what's happened over the last 24 hours, or the last, not 24, the last 18 hours on this. I don't know how much has been pulled out, but why is the 10-year Treasury still a lot higher, roughly 0.4 of a point higher than it was just last Friday?
Likely because a deal isn't a deal until it's done.
Until it's done? Yeah, okay.
This is the problem, is that on the other side of the table with any of those given trade partners, the key is, well, you have to say pause. You can't say, okay, 10% permanent. You have to say, you have to look like you're willing to go back. Because that's the threat and leverage you have in that negotiation with them. Well, in the case of Japan or any of the foreign debt holders, then they look at that and say, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen because of that pause. So they don't really change a thing because it says pause. It doesn't say permanent. And we work out our own deal, and then we won't have to worry about that. There are a number of things I think at play with those foreign debt holders that, again, when you look at the rest of the world has been looking at the U.S. for a while on the national debt, on our national debt, saying you've got to get your fiscal house in order because you can't keep doing this. And you have, again, foreign nations that buy up some of that debt, and they do it for a reason. But at the end of it, we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be in this place where we ever have to worry about what they're going to do as a result of us being in debt to the tune of $36 trillion.
Right.
It shouldn't. That should never be any of the considerations.
But again, it is economic reality.
It's where we are.
You have the
again,
debt.
that toothpaste left that tube decades ago, and it's quite unfortunate. And so now, I think it's, again, well, you guys said pause. You know, on this side of the table, the trade partners that don't really hold any foreign debt, you're using that leverage of the pause that, hey, we could put those back on, so we need a good deal. And then with the foreign debt holders, it's like, yeah, you guys could put it back on. So we're not gonna budge. We're not gonna do anything. We believe this is the safe play. And we don't want the idea of a default on that could be, catastrophic. So the safe play is to do this until we believe otherwise. And so the pause is working for you in some cases and against you in some cases, if that is what's going on here. And I guess that has to be what's happening. I guess we can watch the markets and see where it goes in the coming days and weeks. But, it's a 90-day pause. So I think, I told you during the break, during one of the breaks earlier, that having a president with the unpredictable nature as commander-in-chief when it comes to our enemies, I think is a good thing. And he's demonstrated his capabilities as a commander-in-chief during his first term. I think I have no questions or concerns there. But the unpredictable nature when it comes to trade is a different thing because it rattles the markets. It has investors and companies having to make moves on the fly. When he talks about flexibility, he talked about that yesterday. You don't have that kind of flexibility in business. You got to make a move now. And so our trade partners know that. Companies, the consumer, how the consumer will be impacted by all of this, that's still, again, yet to become the reality. The retail level hasn't been impacted just yet. Not in a big way. But once that starts, because the China thing will have an impact. It's a massive tariff on a number of things, so that's going to have an impact. And when that happens, that's also going to, the markets will react to that. Companies have to plan. They have to, plan around what the consumer is going to do. And there's a general thought of, okay, the consumer changes based on the cost of goods going up. Mm-hmm. But you don't know to what degree.
Well, no, I mean, that's the point that you brought up earlier, which I think is a great point. The American public has not felt any increase in prices yet.
Right. We haven't had the retail impact just yet.
Right. And so how will they react?
Yeah.
Well, as you've seen in the past, again, economics decides it.
Right.
People act in their best self-interest, so if prices go up, they're not happy.
We've seen this.
They buy less of it.
Exactly. When there was inflation, we saw the trends of, okay, what do we do? We're cutting back on this. They buy the store brand versus the name brand. They buy the smaller version, or they go without. They decide they're not going to have, whatever that is. Those items that they can cut from their list. And that's where the minutia comes in of the behavior of the consumer. So, but when it comes to China, so much stuff that we import from them and a massive tariff on China, it will have an impact. It has to be done. You have to put China's feet to the fire. The question is there a deal to be made there? And can you get on top of an intellectual property rights? And when it comes to the bond market, is there a concern there with China, too? When it comes to Treasury bills, are they concerned that that could be a long-term play with China? Xi has made it known he doesn't want to blink. And if he sees Trump blinking from the other side, even if it's not with China, he believes that he can hold out a little bit longer. I don't know how long he can. I don't know the reality. No one knows
right, because America is such a huge consumer of their products.
Right. It
can only be subsidized for so long.
Right. So I don't know. I can't tell you how long that goes on. Or, China's suffering so badly with their economy that a deal, they look to get a deal quickly. I don't know. I can't read that one at all.
Yeah. We're actually in uncharted territory.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We are.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, House Republicans delayed the final vote on the Senate-approved budget resolution framework.
I'm shocked.
The Speaker, Speaker Johnson, who previously was optimistic that the bill would pass, said the House would vote on the measure Thursday morning.
Right.
Okay, that leaves... I wasn't sure if they were leaving after today or tomorrow. They're leaving after tomorrow.
Right.
That leaves the lower chamber with one legislative day remaining before the representatives depart for a 2-week vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Well...
Good luck with that.
Let me see here. Oh, this is the thing that got to me. All right. It should get to a lot of people. The Senate's budget resolution requires a minimum of $1 billion in spending cuts over the next 10 years.
$4 billion, you say?
Oh, my gosh.
Wow. That's the kind of discipline I'm looking for.
That's $400 million a year. While the House budget measure seeks at least $1.5 trillion in cuts. So as you can see, the Republicans in the Senate don't exactly have the Doge mentality.
A full $4 billion in a decade. Whew. Slow down, guys. You're moving way too quickly for me. That's a lot of zeros. Wow. $400 million a year. That's one Romney.
I love
that was his net worth when he ran.
I love this one. The Senate's budget resolution, this is from National Review. The Senate's budget resolution requires a minimum of $4 billion in spending cuts over the next 10 years, while the House budget measure seeks at least $1.5 trillion in cuts, a much higher target in comparison.
Yeah, we know. We know.
House Republicans holding out on the bill argue that the Senate's plan would further raise the national debt. The budget reconciliation bill would allow for more than $5 trillion in tax cuts and would extend the Trump 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts, which expire by the end of next year. The program's expiration would cause a 22% tax hike for Americans, but a cut for Eric and Gary. House GOP leadership posted. So, and this bill would lead then to the reconciliation bill, where they say we can cut at that particular point, and that's their argument. We can cut then, but then the question would be, well, why can't you cut hypothetically then in a budget resolution?
Right.
If
what's
you're
going
only
to change between now and then?
Right. If you're only cutting hypothetically now,
right, This is when you want to go big.
Right, and you can't cut.
Yeah, that tells me the actual cuts are going to be even smaller than $4 billion over 10 years on the Senate side. Hey, let's say $4 billion. Wow.
Johnson's statement came after several House Republicans, including members of the House Freedom Caucus, walked into a private meeting with GOP leaders during the debate on the House floor. Representative Chip Roy reiterated that he would not vote for an irresponsible budget from the Senate. Ralph Norman of South Carolina also said the Senate's math isn't adding up. It doesn't make any financial sense. Roy and Norman, both of whom are members of the House Freedom Caucus, voted in favor of teeing up the bill for a floor debate and a final vote in a procedural motion. They're expected to vote against the bill unless they can be convinced otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem. And I think they do understand it. With all the DOGE cuts that were being talked about, and I mean, it was like 2 weeks ago when they were throwing out, the $4 billion a day. We've cut $4 billion a day.
Right.
Oh, wow. That's 1.4, was it 1.45, 1.46 trillion a year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah.
Will any of these budgets have anything close to those kinds of cuts if they're able to cut just on waste and fraud alone?
Right.
That doesn't affect anybody.
Right. As we were told.
Yeah.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
Just reading here something that Fox News had, and I thought we kind of already knew at least part of this. Trump has a timeline in mind for Iran nuke deal. Taps Israel to lead any potential military action. That second half of it is what I was referring to. We kind of knew that would be Israel, that we wouldn't be going after Iran. We wouldn't use our military to go after Iran if there is any enforcement necessary. Because I just don't think that is part of Trump's playbook.
What about the B-52s that are ready to go that we keep hearing about?
Sure. I think a show of power, for sure. To show them we're serious.
You don't think we would use our Air Force?
Maybe. Depends on if
Air
Israel
power?
can get the job done. Well, here's the question, because the first question that came to mind is, well, what do the people of Israel think about that?
Well, they would be able to buy the $7.2 billion.
Yeah, exactly.
To alleviate the deficit.
Yeah.
Thanks. We got a lot of comment on that going, wow, you guys figured that out. That'd be great for Israel.
Yeah.
They're the one country that could do the even thing because
I think that's why Bibi was so enthusiastic about it. Well, I think every country should do this.
Right.
Because, we've been trying to do that for a while. But
we'll buy your weapons.
Yeah, exactly. Sell us more.
Sell us more.
We'll give you a surplus. I think we'll keep this going.
Well,
I think it's again, Israel taking the lead was something I thought was always going to be the case. I think I think most people thought that was going to be the case, and the U.S. is going to be there to support Israel, basically.
If you were saying
needed,
you were saying off the air to me about the number of missteps in this administration and the fact that it's not one, because you can have one, but there seems to be a succession, which you ask, does the right hand know what the left hand's doing? And you really can go back to Tulsi Gabbard a couple of weeks ago when she testified saying there is no evidence, no intelligence whatsoever that Iran is going after a nuclear bomb at all. And we believe that the Ayatollah, when they shut down the nuclear program in 2004, there's no intelligence that they have any indication that they plan on doing it. And you and I mean, everybody, the New York Post had an article going, what the hell is she talking about?
Right.
And then immediately the administration, since that point, has been talking about how we may go to war with Iran to stop them from their nuclear program.
Fact, the ramp-ups seemed to start right about that time.
Right, I know.
And I don't know. It wasn't good.
It was horrible.
I don't know what she had in front of her. But
you notice I haven't seen any of her hardly at all since then.
No, I haven't seen anything.
Because
really.
That was just, she was pounding on that saying, what the hell is she talking about?
Right.
Because right after it, all we've heard is the intensity level go up and up and up and up and up and up and up.
Well,
and the funny thing is, you know something, when you think about I think there was somebody wrote an article the other day saying the Democrats aren't going away, but they're not really focusing on anything. They're not really pounding on Trump on stuff that they could pound on him on. It's like they're in their own world, talking about their own far left issues that they believe they're losing on and not paying attention to even going after the administration on anything, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think right now, with everything that happened that fell out yesterday, I think there's good reason to believe the president may be looking to, all right, let's realign things. Messaging has always been an issue. It was in the first term, and it has been here especially on trade. But so many things have been clear-cut where there's no question and everybody was on board. The other missteps that have happened, any one of them in and of itself is not a major misstep. I don't know how you get the director of national intelligence, how it gets to the point of saying, we don't have any evidence of Iran trying to get nuclear capabilities. Even Obama probably said, I'm sorry, what? Did she say that out loud?
And then it's almost like immediately after that, you started hearing all the talk of the U.S. ramping up in case we have to go to war with Iran because they're pursuing their nuclear program. And it's like, what world is Tulsi Gabbard in? And nobody ever explained the difference.
No, they didn't. And my big question is, I know they're not going to share intel with us. We're not going to see that. But my question is, do we not have the intel? Why would she say that? When the entire world for a while has been saying otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Did we see anything? Was there a response by Netanyahu when she said that? I don't remember him saying it.
I don't remember anything from Netanyahu. I don't.
Because when she said it, I thought to myself, is that because the intel is owned by Israel? You know what I mean? It's not our intel. I'm trying to find out why she would say that. And I thought, is it true? Because we got, 18 intel agencies, if you count all the military and everything else. You're saying there's nothing?
No indication. Then why all this talk about Iran better shape up or war is a possibility?
Because that makes it sound like, again, that there's never, for over 20 years, there hasn't been a threat. When we know that's not the case.
I know. And we played the audio of her that day when she did it, when she was testifying before the Senate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, what's she talking about?
Is it that she hasn't gotten to that drawer yet in her office? Because it should be the top drawer, along with North Korea, Russia, China, terrorists, cartels, Canada. I just throw Canada in. You can't convince me that is the case. One of those agencies, if not all of those agencies she oversees, has data, has information that leads us to believe that, of course, they are. We know this.
And
then the commander-in-chief, I mean, it seemed to start like immediately.
I know.
We're going to, still in that mode of, sitting down with Iran to come to some kind of agreement.
And it was, because it was like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Because the first editorial I saw was the New York Post that just said, we don't care what Tulsi Gabbard says.
Right.
She's completely wrong. We have no idea where she's getting this information from, how she testified that way.
Right. Very unlike Tulsi Gabbard. Very unbelievable in terms of its content.
Yeah. And nobody ever explained, and no reporter, from what I know, asked the question.
No correction, nothing.
How come Tulsi said there's no evidence at all, yet you guys are ramping up that if Iran doesn't stop with their nuclear program, we're going to go after them.
Right.
If there's no nuclear program, why are you making this threat?
Right.
If you have no evidence of a nuclear and everybody knows that's false.
Right.
We all know it because there's no reason that they're ramping up, their nuclear stockpile to the level of what is it? Plutonium, uranium, whatever it is, to the level that is only used for weaponry,
right?
Not for electricity, and everybody knows it. She says it. The administration since then have been talking about they better straighten up, they better straighten up, they better straighten up. All the talk is if they don't straighten up, they cannot get a nuclear bomb, the president has said. They will not allow that to happen. Israel will not allow that to happen.
Right.
Well, if they haven't even thought about making a nuclear bomb in 20 years, why are we talking this way?
Right.
And no reporter ever asked the administration. I don't believe. I've never seen it.
No.
What's the disconnect here? How come Tulsi's saying one thing?
That seemed to just lay there.
I know.
Maybe because it was so baffling. People are stunned like, what? And I haven't heard anything on that. No walking it back, no correction, nothing.
Yeah. All I want is an explanation. That's all I want. Tell me.
Right.
Did she get it wrong? Did she think there was another question? I mean, what was it?
Why would there be any negotiations? Why would if that's the case? I just, that does not, it doesn't compute.
It doesn't compute. I know. It's just so weird. And so, you had brought that up earlier, just like, there's a number of things. That was one. Everything we've gone through with the tariffs.
The whole message app debacle.
The message app debacle. Yep. That was. Yeah.
And again, any one of these in and of themselves isn't necessarily, a massive problem. Not a good look. The IG had to get, and we knew it at the time, I think we said it, the IG has to get involved when it comes to that messaging thing. How does somebody in the media get pulled into that conversation? And
we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. In fact, the IG wouldn't be, I would insist that the IG gets involved because we need the answers to how that happens. But, any of those things in and of themselves, all right, it's a bad day or maybe a bad week. But then you get to the point of, stock market crashing day after day and everything else. And then that starts to pile on. Those other things come back to haunt you. And I don't believe, when it comes to this administration, I don't believe they're incompetent. I don't believe Tulsi Gabbard's incompetent. I don't believe Hegseth is incompetent.
Neither do I.
Mistakes are going to be made.
Well,
and it's unfortunate. And they shouldn't be. There shouldn't be we shouldn't have a situation where it's a greater that welcomes in or enables a higher risk of mistakes. The app thing. Why is that happening on an app? Why are you talking national security on an app? We should have some answers by. I would want a hearing just on the Iran thing with Tulsi Gabbard.
Right.
Explain that to me.
Well, why isn't anybody holding a meeting during the day saying these are the talking points today? Everybody say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean that's Susie Wiles.
Yeah, that would be her job for the White House. Yeah,
right.
And the same thing Tulsi Gabbard then,
right?
She's
right.
It's like these are the talking points for today. Everybody say the same thing. That's been part of the problem with the whole tariff thing.
Right.
Bessent would get out there and say one thing. Trump would say another thing. Navarro's saying something else. And it's just like, well, what is it?
That's apparently why everything was pulled together yesterday and the way it went down in the presser yesterday with Bessent being a part of that. Yeah. You control the messaging.
866-90-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Support for nuclear energy in the U.S. approaches a record high. We'll get to that. And the whole book Uncharted that was written, and Christopher Whipple, the author, was on Fox News. The whole thing about what was going on inside the Biden campaign.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't believe what the author is saying, but we'll have part of the interview that he did with Fox News because you're like, come on.
Yeah.
You're saying these are complete idiots? That there wasn't a conspiracy?
Right.
That they're just all idiots?
Right.
Then again,
well,
this is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. Hey, it's going to be a couple of good days for me the next few days.
Yeah.
I'm going to be immersed in golf.
All right.
I've got a charity tournament this weekend. It's on Saturday, but the party is Friday night.
All right.
But I have to drive 70 miles, roughly, to get there, so I stay overnight.
Okay. All right.
So it's like a trip. Even that's a problem when you live in this area. Well, the party's Friday night, so the last thing I want to do is drive 70 miles there, then drive 70 miles back, then drive 70 miles back the next morning, and then 70 miles back on Saturday night. So I get a hotel.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of driving.
But I will get to see Independent Bob.
All right.
Now, longtime listeners know of Independent Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Independent Bob used to be the guy that would say, well, I'm not like you. I'm an independent.
Yeah.
I look at both sides of the issue. Go, what?
Right.
You don't think I do? Which started our arguments. This goes back 20 years. Now, because of the Democrats, when I talked to Bob last week, we agreed on everything.
No longer so independent.
No, but everybody knows him as Independent Bob.
Yeah.
But he's coming down. He lives in Hot Springs Village. Because I don't see him anymore because he moved. I see him once, maybe twice a year. But this is a tournament. Great people. Make-A-Wish tournament it is. And it's just so much fun. And that's going on while the Masters starts today. And then I'll be I just haven't had time to golf. So 2 days ago, I went to the driving range and spent about 45 minutes there. I plan on spending 2 hours there today.
Oh,
and then probably, and then working out tendonitis and everything else. But 2 hours at the driving range, then working out afterwards, then show prep, then the show tomorrow, and then wake up Friday, work out again, go to the driving range again, and then go to the party in the afternoon, and then go to the driving range Saturday morning before I play. Now, it's a scramble, so it's best ball. You know what that is, right? You have any idea?
No.
Everybody hits a golf ball.
Okay.
You got to force them. Everybody hits a golf ball. Whoever hits the best ball, everybody hits from that spot. Then you count the score. So
okay,
and I'm not going to go into details because there's actually limitations on, for example, on drives. Everybody has to hit you got to count 3 drives from everybody.
Is that always the rule on a 4-man scramble?
No, there can be you can do whatever you want, but a 4-man best ball is what it is. Scramble, yeah.
Is there a reason it's 4, not 3, not 5?
The only thing I can tell you is why you play 18 holes. And I have no idea whether this is true or not, but it came from the Bobby Jones movie with what's his name? Jim Caviezel.
Oh, okay.
He played God twice.
Uh-huh.
God and then Bobby Jones.
Yeah, right.
One of the
Jesus Christ, yeah.
One of the creators of Augusta, where the Masters is.
Right, yeah.
Augusta National. So, I guess it's just. So it's.
Somebody said.
Oh
4,
yeah,
and
the 18 holes, yeah, and why 18 holes? And it was the caddy, I think, that explained, the English caddy. Well, there's 18 shots in a bottle of whiskey. And after the 18 shots, you're done. That's how he explained why there's 18 holes in golf. I have no idea whether that's true, but I'm going to believe that it's always true.
Now I'm curious to know if there's 18 shots in a bottle of whiskey. I mean, I guess that's...
Like in Scotch. I mean, whether
you can do math. I don't have to do any drinking to find it out.
I have no idea whether there is... I never verified it because I didn't feel any need to verify it.
I guess it depends on the size of the bottle, right?
Yes. So I'm going to be playing golf and watching golf. So it's going to be a great weekend. I just don't get to do anything much anymore. Just working out to be able to do the show.
Yeah.
Is about it. So it's for me, it's going to be a great weekend, and we'll see. I really haven't played. I took lessons in 23 and 20, early into 24, and then all my injuries really hit, and then everything was shut down.
Yeah.
And so this is really the time I'm going to be coming back now.
Yeah.
To play this year. This is really my first start. But I didn't even have time the last couple of weeks to go out and play 18 holes. Just didn't have the time.
Right. Yeah.
Life's getting in the way. I hate this.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to retire.
Too much going on.
Maybe I need to retire.
You don't have time to retire. You're too busy.
When I started this show, so I would have started the show What was I? Yeah, I was 50. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was 49.
Okay.
Then I turned 50.
Yeah, okay.
A couple of months into the show.
Yeah.
And this is our 20th year.
Yep.
And I remember when I started the show, good God, being 65 seemed like it was 100 years away back then. And my thought process was, and I knew at the time it would be 66 years and 2 months would be my official, that would be when I thought I was going to retire, and collect normal Social Security. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, I said, it's going to be great. I can put in, have fun here doing this show for another 15 years, and then I'll retire and I can golf every day. And then, I'll still go back up to, New York, go back up to Buffalo and go back up to the holidays to see my family. And then Christmas time will be great. I'll still go back in the fall. I'll go back in the summer and golf. I'll go back in the fall, view the colors, and then I'll go back for Christmas. And then after that, I'll go and ski for a couple of weeks. Then reality hit.
Yeah.
Old age. The last thing I would do. Now, I ride the bike all the time, 10, 15, 20 miles. I'll be swimming soon again, and I get up to 2 miles by the time I get to August. I can do 2 miles at one setting in the pool. Now, I get up at 6 a.m., and I swim till like 8:30, but I can do 2 miles in the pool. And I can lift weights and do all that. I can play golf, and I actually hit the ball as far as I've ever hit the ball. So I've got that. But the joints are gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just can't. I can do it for a certain length of time, but I couldn't ski. You know what skiing would do to my knees? My ankles? Oh, my God. So that's out. Golf every day I can't do. Maybe twice a week I could do golf without the back and everything go. But I guess we'll find out because I've been working out for a year without playing golf. Maybe my back is better. We'll see. But, yeah, this old age stuff really sucks. And I'm relatively healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready for the warm weather. I mean, it's back. We had our last little cool blast come through the other day. Man. And we're going to be 91 this weekend. So
it's supposed
I'm
to be
ready for that.
83, 84 when we golf. And I mean, it was beautiful yesterday. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, it's it's perfect weather right now.
Yeah.
Low to mid 80s coming up. And then was it 90 on Sunday? It's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Well. Yeah, I'm ready for that.
That'll be good.
Yep.
All right. So other topics out there. Enough golf talk.
For this segment, anyway.
A growing number of Americans have expressed support for the use of nuclear energy as a power source in the United States. According to a new Gallup poll, I got this from the Post Millennial.
Okay.
According to a new Gallup poll, 61% of U.S. adults favor the use of nuclear power, a 6-point increase from 2023, and just 1 point shy of the record high recorded in 2010. Of those in favor, 29% said they strongly support nuclear energy, 32% somewhat favor it. 20% of Americans somewhat oppose nuclear power, and 15% strongly oppose it. The poll conducted between March 3rd and March 16th come as tech giants Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon have pledged to expand nuclear energy use. This can't be real. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, no nukes.
Mm-hmm.
Jane Fonda movies.
Mm-hmm.
Meltdowns. Oh, yeah, 3 Mile Island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was only living when that happened, a couple of 100 miles away from there.
Mm.
When that happened, I forgot about that.
Chernobyl,
yeah. All these things, and I mean, remember
they did a movie, or was it a series? A movie, I think, on Chernobyl. Wow,
I've
crazy.
Not seen that. I'd like.
Yeah,
they've done a movie. I've seen the documentaries on it.
Yeah, It was a movie.
I'd love to see the movie. And
Yeah.
I did see the guy that would, on YouTube, you'll see people that, actually go to Chernobyl and check it out now.
Right.
And see how deserted it is.
Right, yeah. I think it was a series. I think it was a limited series, if I remember correctly.
Well,
it was back several years.
For example, when I think of the actor Martin Sheen, the only thing I think about him is getting arrested for no nukes protests.
Right.
That's what I remember about him. I mean, when you say, what do you think about him? Except the movie The Way, which is a great movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. If you haven't seen it, I'll be seeing my sister next weekend. She'll probably say, can we watch The Way? It's sort of become my sister and I our Easter movie.
Right.
Did you expect that it would be that good when you saw it? The Way?
No, not really.
The character development is what sells that movie.
Yeah, it's all, the whole thing is great dialogue.
Great dialogue.
Character development. It was very well done.
Well done. And really, that's Emilio Estevez's movie. He put his father in it, but he was great in that. He was great in that movie.
Yeah,
but
it really was. That's
what I know him for. And so to go through that in the 70s and then see now, because by bringing nuclear energy in and having these companies say, think about it, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they've pledged not for wind and solar, nuclear energy. You have to understand, if you grew up when I grew up, you're like, that can't be true.
Well, think about what's the commonality with them. These are all companies that require massive servers with massive amounts of reliable energy.
The companies are increasingly seeking larger, more reliable energy sources to meet the rising demand of artificial intelligence data centers. That's one of the problems that blue states are going to have.
Yeah,
they don't want anything but solar and wind.
If for nothing else, if it gets to be again, the agenda on the left requires them to go through at some point. It's going to require rolling brownouts to become a regular thing. Now, I don't think any of us are going to allow that, but we've seen it happen. We don't tolerate that, but in business, you lose. You can't have that. You can't have your data center in a place where there's going to be on the regular rolling brownouts as a result of policy that does not provide reliable energy. Period.
And we'll go through some of these survey numbers next on fossil fuels, because it does show that Americans believe that energy is cheap right now.
Right, yeah.
Because everything changes. You and I remember, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Summer of 2008.
Yep, remember that?
$147 a barrel, and you had a number of Democrats that were saying drill, baby, drill.
Yep. Americans believe energy is cheap based on these survey numbers.
Right.
Which totally change if energy skyrockets. So everything that gets them the cheap energy, a significant portion of Americans are against, unless you close them down and energy becomes more expensive, and then they want them back.
Yep.
We'll tell you what it is coming up next. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, in this nuclear energy survey that was poll that was taken, the issue regarding nuclear energy shows a clear partisan divide. 74% of Republicans and 64% of independents support nuclear power, compared to just 46% of Democrats. Support among Republicans has increased 12 percentage points since 2023, and among independents by 8 since Gallup began tracking the issue in 1994. Democrat support has exceeded 50% only 4 times and never gone above 54%. Public opinion is even more divided on other energy policies promoted by President Trump, including fossil fuel expansion. Americans are split 50 to 46% on increasing offshore oil and gas drilling in coastal areas. When it comes to fracking, 48% oppose it, while 45% support it. What the hell do they think is getting them cheap gasoline? Do they have any because I guarantee they didn't break it down. I guarantee the majority are Democrats there.
Yeah.
Is there any critical thinking at all in the Democratic Party as to how people get to live the life that they get to live?
Maybe they confuse an oil rig with a gas pump. You know, I mean, how do you get oil from the ground? Well, I don't know. I just pull up and put it in my car. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just right there in the ground. Always.
And of course, the poll shows declining concern over energy costs and availability. Mm-hmm. In 2022, 47% of Americans said they were worried a great deal about energy affordability and rising gas prices. That number has since dropped to 35%. I mean, do they not connect the dots and understand why they're not complaining about energy prices? By the way, I am complaining. My natural gas was up this past winter a lot.
Interesting.
It was up, but so I pay attention to it. I just want a return on my investment, and I remember. I don't live in the bubble of today, neither do you, so I remember what prices were the year before that and the year before that. But what they're saying is energy supplies are great. We'd like to shut down what's giving me the cheap energy, but then I'll complain if I don't have cheap energy.
Well, yeah, it's the virtue signaling, buying into the whole charade of, you know, the world is going to end by 2030. And then when it costs them something, well, no, drill, baby, drill.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Anything going on you think at all?
There's nothing going on in the news, nor has there been for days.
Okay, Tammy writes, Chernobyl 5-part miniseries.
Yes, thank you, Tammy. That was on Max. It was HBO back then, I think. But it's from 2019, and it was a limited series, a mini series, as they used to call it. And it's available. I think that's where I saw it. I think I rented it on Prime.
So it's not a documentary; it's a mini series. I've seen the documentary.
Yeah, I said movie.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And then I said,
and
I think it's a limited series. Yeah,
and she writes 5-part miniseries. Amazon Prime Video or subscription to Max.
Yeah,
I have both of those. Max I got for some reason. I don't even know how I get Max.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a series. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks.
It's hard to watch. I mean, to have it depicted, right? Mm-hmm. Of everything that happened, you know, and I mean, there's humans involved. And it's just, wow. Which is, I guess, how it won an Emmy or multiple Emmys. I don't know. But it's wild.
I would tell you this. I did watch, I never watched Criminal Intent at all.
Mm-hmm.
Never watched that show before, and just in the last year, I've been watching it. D'Onofrio, I know he's a nutcase, but he's fantastic.
Yeah. That's some of his best work.
And every Chris Noth, he's also in it. What's his name? Also from Independence Day, Jeff Goldblum.
Mm-hmm.
But the women, I don't care who it is who plays the opposite detective of them, and there's probably 6 or 7 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Eric Bogosian too. Right?
Oh, Bogosian, yeah, he's in it.
Yeah.
I saw the one where he got killed.
Yeah,
and that's how he got. But no, it's such. The writing is unbelievable in it, and the acting is just
all the Law and Orders. I like the original. You can't really top, but that one stands out too because of the nature of D'Onofrio and his approach to that, or that character's approach to detective work.
The weirdest human being on the planet and the greatest detective, and that's his character. They all think he's weird.
Yeah.
But did you ever see the part where he is, and by the way, I'll get to my point in a second here. You ever see the one where he's with the shrink?
No.
Oh, some of the greatest back and forth with just fantastic. Absolutely great stuff.
Outsmarting the shrink, probably.
She's really good too, the actress that plays, and it's just like, whoa. And I know I'm talking about something that's 20 years old. This is sort of like Gary's 10-year-old movie update whenever I finally get to see a movie.
I just did a 6-year-old review on Chernobyl, so yeah.
But no, there was one of them where they had somebody was murdered by radiation poisoning, a reporter.
Yeah.
And they go through and they did it very realistically, and that in itself, you're like, I want to die any other way but that.
Yeah. Yeah, Chernobyl was brutal to watch. I mean, because again, we know all the facts. Everybody that lived through it, we watched that, and the documentaries are really great too. But when you watch it play out as it's depicted, it's like, oh my gosh, this is pretty much what these humans experienced and how this whole thing went down. Wow.
And so when you look at this poll, this is getting back to the poll that we were talking about, support for nuclear energy in the U.S. approaches record highs, but for other fossil fuels, no, it's actually lower than nuclear power. And when you see what Democrats think about fossil fuels and oil and natural gas, it's really incredible. I mean, I was reading something about New York State. They're not going to have enough energy.
Right.
And so you've got, for example, Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, all pledging to expand nuclear energy use because of AI in the data centers. They need so much electricity. I remember even 20 years ago, they're like, well, we're not going to need the electricity because incandescent bulbs are going away and everything's so much more efficient.
Yeah.
Sorry, technology is going to use a ton more electricity, more than ever dreamed 20 years ago, isn't it?
Right.
And it's like, you've got to have a consistent form of energy.
Well, think about what we power as consumers, and then what we rely on from them. You think about streaming. You think about everything that they all provide. It's massive amounts of energy that have to go into these data centers because we demand it, because we need, something as simple as Facebook or Amazon not being there. Imagine Amazon went down for a day. I need my widget today or tomorrow.
There may be some widgets you can't get from Amazon in the next couple of months.
That's for sure. Or they may be more expensive if you can.
Or they more be exactly one or the other. Well, yeah, because that's when there's a shortage, because they talked about shortages. Well, the shortages are always relieved by most of the time, by increasing the price.
Right. Look, when any social media site goes down, it's a crisis. And then it's breaking news.
Well, that's the thing. We live in a society.
You can't give up the Facebook for 10 minutes.
No, you're so right. I mean, we lived before all these things. So for us, though, a phone is like not having a newspaper.
Right.
in the old days. It's
yeah.
like not being able, and so it makes our life so productive.
We drank out of the water hose.
Yeah. No, you're right. But we lived without it. And at times, you ever think and say, how the hell did we ever live without a smartphone? How did I ever do a radio show without a smartphone?
Well, how did we learn anything, right? No, seriously, how did you learn anything? I mean, social media back then was if your grandmother still had a party line phone, right? And multiple people were on the phone. That was social media back then.
Just 10 years ago. App? I don't need any app on my phone.
Right.
What's a smart thing? An app? I don't even know. I probably got, over 100 apps on my phone.
Oh, my gosh.
For everything known to mankind.
Right.
It's like.
Well, you ever think of something and go, how is there not an app for that?
I was ticked off yesterday because, of course, we all have smart TVs now.
Yeah.
That now all have apps, and you can add apps.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I downloaded the Masters app to my. Think about this. You want first world problems? This is a first world problem. So every year, for probably the last 5 years, I download the Masters app.
Right.
And you cast it to your TV, to the Google or whatever.
Right, sure.
Well, now, so many of these apps that I had, I don't have to cast them anymore because the smart TVs, you can download the app right there.
Right.
Well, there's no Masters app. I have to actually cast it from my phone.
That's so ancient.
What an where am I? What year am I living in?
What does the world come to?
What is it? 2017?
How do we blame Obama for this?
It's Trump's fault. It's a golf app. Trump should have taken care of the damn thing.
Right.
It's all Trump's fault.
This is what happens when you go into business with Liv. It all goes to hell.
But seriously, that's when you think about that, how quickly the culture changes.
Oh, yeah.
And how somebody like me or me, because I'm 10 years older, and you think, I used to walk to school, never look at a phone. Went to class, came back home.
Well,
there were three TV networks, 3 TV stations. Okay, 4 if you counted PBS.
Right.
4. That was it.
Yeah.
That's all you had.
Right.
And all the music, you had to wait for them to deliver it to you. You couldn't sit there and say, I'm going to go on my phone. I've got like 6,000 songs on my phone. I have a DJ system on my phone. I can mix music automatically on my phone. I don't even need to mix it myself. It does it automatically. It's my dang phone. All this takes electricity.
Yeah.
All
Gotta
of
be
it.
powered. Got to be powered. And that's it. With all of that data that we're consuming, all of that takes a ton of power. And it has to be reliable because the moment it's down, imagine the Masters app goes down Sunday morning, the world's going to end.
Well, luckily it's on network TV.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I watched.
Yeah, but who has network TV anymore? Talk about ancient.
Well, but that's the thing. When I cut the cord or the satellite a few years back, how many years has it been now? Maybe 5 years?
Yeah.
Every one of my TVs, I have a digital antenna.
Right.
And then the rest is streaming.
But once I cut the cord, I don't even like going to, with the exception of local weather, I don't even like watching the actual television anymore. If it's not streaming, I don't want to watch it.
But when they made it seamless, from your on-air channels that go right to the streaming channels, and then you can go, you go to where the apps are, you go to that streaming. But on my TV, I have an LG TV. They have LG stations, which does mirror a bunch of the different other apps that I have, whether it's Pluto or Tubi.
Yeah, Roku has it, and I have Roku TVs.
But it's like I have 400 channels.
Yeah.
So I never missed having cable or satellite from day one because everything is seamless. It's just, you just go from one channel to the next. It's not like you have to go to a different section. You do it when you go to the apps, but it's so simple now. It's so easy. It's really, but everything takes electricity. And so we live in a day and age, especially for young people, where if you're a young Democrat out there, you rely more on energy to do your daily things, electricity, than we did.
Yeah, right.
Because everything that you have on your phone is related to electricity somehow. Your computer, the streaming, everything.
Well, and I mean, my dad will be 92 in May. We were talking. We were in his living room a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking. And he goes, it's just amazing, the technology, because, as they grow older, mom has a birthday today, in fact. And as they grow older, more and more limited mobility. And they have help there at the house. But, Dad uses technology. And then he goes, Alexa, are you listening to me? And then Alexa sounds back, because he's got Alexa set up. Alexa sounds back. The policy is not to listen to blah, 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 privacy policy. And it was, and he just did that as a joke. But he's, again, it's being able to integrate that into our lives to the point where it's not that it's just convenient. It has to be there. We demand that it's there because we start relying on it.
And that would be my question to any Democrat who is against fossil fuel or nuclear energy. You are so incredibly dependent. Have you never connected the dots that the energy has to be there and it comes from somewhere? I don't think they have.
No.
Because there's no way you could hold the opinions that they hold. Well, unless you wish to go back to the caveman era.
You ask them how, because they don't think it through. How does electricity work? I turn on the switch.
Nope. Electrons through a conductor.
This is the problem when you don't understand the entire grid or infrastructure that's set up.
That's great.
That brings us all of this stuff that, again, not only do we demand it, we rely on it.
Wow. That poll's pretty amazing. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Our show ends an hour from now. After our show ends, our podcast starts. Our podcast is, we record our entire show, and that becomes our podcast. So if you only caught the last hour or the last 2 hours, you'd like to catch the beginning of the show, you can do that. Or if you cannot, for some reason, listen to us during the show on one of our great radio stations that carries us, we stream live on all 5 hours on Red Eye Radio app. The Red Eye Radio app. Yes. I thought there was another word I had put in there, and there wasn't.
Nope, that's about it.
See, I'm getting lazy. I want to golf.
Yeah, it's, by the way, still free. The app, getting better and better by the day.
Oh,
still free.
Because golf isn't free.
Golf is not free.
No.
See, there are a few things in the world that are. Red Eye Radio is one of them.
McNamara lining up the 25-foot putt. It's in the hole!
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.